Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of The Most Accurate Podcast. I am your host, Addison Hayes, joined as always by one of the most accurate rankers in the entire fantasy community, John Paulson. John, how are we doing on this fine Thursday morning?
It's October 30th. We have a large ship or something, rock, coming into the solar system. I don't know if you've heard about this. We've got Halloween tomorrow. There's a lot going on this week.
Oh boy, yeah, trick or treat for me tonight. Are you a Halloween trick or treater, like on the actual day of Halloween, or does your city do a different day?
I believe this year it'll be Friday night. So yeah, we'll have.
All right.
I don't really answer the door anymore. I just put a bowl out and say, "Take two. We're watching."
Yeah,
it's too much work.
I don't blame you. For some reason, my area has always done the last Thursday of the month, like it's Thanksgiving or something like that. I don't know why we don't do it on just the Halloween day, but whatever. Anyway, we are talking about Week 9 sneaky starts. So John and I each have a player at all four positions, totaling 8 players that we believe are in for pretty good weeks this week. Again, you don't have to try to force these guys into your lineup if you have better options, but we really like trying to see if you can start these guys and have better than expected fantasy performances. And then we'll wrap it up with a Bleacher Nation fantasy card for the Sunday slate of games. So, John, why don't you kick us off with your quarterback sneaky start this week?
Yeah, it looks like he's going to be back after, missing a couple of games, I think, with the foot injury. Jacoby Brissett filled in for him. Kyler Murray coming back this week at Dallas, where he is like 9-0 going back to high school or something. I saw some stat. Dallas is last in the league in quarterback adjusted fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. They've given up an average of 273 passing yards and 2.5 touchdowns per game to the position, along with 28 rushing yards and 0.38 rushing touchdowns per game. Murray has not maybe had the greatest fantasy season, but he's scored at least 14 fantasy points in all 5 of his starts. So he does have like a solid floor due to his rushing. And I think the sky is the limit this week, given this Cowboy pass defense.
Yep. It just seems like we're always going to talk about whoever the quarterback is that plays the Dallas Cowboys, as long as they're not like an elite top guy. If they play the Dallas Cowboys, you should probably try to get them in your lineup. And that's pretty much the only argument you really need to say for Kyler Murray. But I absolutely love it, especially because it seems like he could be on waiver wires, or if he is on your roster, you might not be sure about when to necessarily start him. If you're not playing him against the Dallas Cowboys, you probably will never actually play him against anybody else. So I love that call. Mine this week is Aaron Rodgers, who gets a Indianapolis Colts defense that is 26th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position. The Colts defense has actually been really good this year, like from an NFL standpoint, but I think largely because of the fact that their offense is so good and they score so many points that then forces opposing teams to have to throw more in order to try to catch up. So that's why we're seeing a lot of fantasy production from quarterbacks and wide receivers against the Indianapolis Colts, especially in kind of garbage time. So Aaron Rodgers, he hasn't been uber phenomenal from a fantasy standpoint, especially because he doesn't run. But over the past couple of weeks, and since the bye in week 5, he's had 17.5, 24.5, and then 17 fantasy points. So he's been pretty solid throwing the ball. And when you look at what opposing defenses have done, or what opposing quarterbacks have done to the Colts defense, I mean, they just gave up 260 yards and a touchdown to Cam Ward. The week before that was Justin Herbert's 420-3. The week before that, Jacoby Brissett 320-2. Matthew Stafford had 375-3 on them, and then Bo Nix had 206-3 back in week 2. So the Colts defense is very susceptible to passing production, and I'm assuming that they're probably going to be able to shut down Jaylen Warren, and we know that Aaron Rodgers likes to throw a little bit more inside the red zone and around the goal line. So I'm expecting, 250-2 feels decent for Aaron Rodgers, and if he gets that third touchdown, that's just a better fantasy day for you.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the Steelers defense is going to allow him to be conservative or allow that offense to be conservative. Like they're going to have to score and probably in catch-up mode. I agree with you. He's got the at least two touchdowns in 3 straight games for the last 5, and he's hit a 4-touchdown game against Cincy. I could definitely see this being sort of a ceiling game for him, and he'll probably give you a nice floor with minimum of 2 touchdowns and probably 230, 240 in passing.
So we can move on to the tight end position then. John, why don't you kick us off with your tight end sneaky start this week?
Yeah, I was actually gonna take your guy. I had it. I was gonna put him in there, and then I'm like, well, I'm not gonna spoil it, but I'll tell you why I'm a little bit worried about him. But AJ Barner is the guy I decided to pick, and he's not a high volume guy. Like the floor is literally a goose egg, given his 3.1 targets per game, but he's getting really valuable targets in the red zone. He's catching touchdowns. He's found the end zone 4 times in his last 6 games. He's posted 71 yards and or a touchdown in that same stretch. The matchup really couldn't be better. The Commanders have been shredded by tight ends all season, getting up 6 for 99 and a touchdown to Travis Kelce, 7 for 29, 2 touchdowns to Jake Ferguson, 5 for 70, a touchdown to Kyle Pitts, and Tucker Kraft went off for 6 for 124 and 1 touchdown. I was actually at that game. I just think he's a solid, with a low floor, tight end 2 this week. And, if you're streaming, you could do a lot worse. He actually has multi-touchdown upside.
Yeah, we've seen that multiple times. And like you said, the Commanders with Jaden Daniels back, if that game becomes a little bit more of a shootout, especially because it is in Washington, so you would think that would favor the Commanders a little bit more to be able to score points, even though Seattle's defense is fairly decent. The more that Sam Darnold has to throw, that's just going to be better for AJ Barner, especially in and around the goal line. So I definitely like the call. And I was looking at your tight end rankings, and I like where he's at because obviously there's all of a sudden there seems to be a lot of really good tight ends that you could start on a weekly basis. But if you obviously don't have one of those guys, or like missed out on picking up Oronde Gadsden or anything like that, then AJ Barner I think becomes very, very playable for you if you don't have like a top 10 guy essentially on the week in your rankings. So my tight end sneaky start this week that I noticed was one spot higher than Barner in your rankings, and we can talk about him because you said that you wanted to throw him out here, is Colston Loveland. I'm thinking that this is potentially the Colston Loveland week. I know we've tried to play this game with Travis Hunter before of like, this is the Travis Hunter week. This is the Travis Hunter week. We've done this game, I think, a few times with Matthew Golden, and it hasn't necessarily panned out. So maybe this is another rookie that I'm hopeful on just a little bit too early. But Colston Loveland, since returning from his injury and the Bears bye week, 42% of snaps in week 6, 66% of snaps in week 7, 81% of snaps in week 8. Now, he did not have Cole Kmet did not play last week, and he got injured in that week 7 matchup. So I think that's also contributing to his higher snap totals over the past week and a half, essentially. But before the injury, he was already playing in, 50% of snaps, 56% and 52%, was 42% immediately off the injury. And then it started to seem like even before Kmet's injury in that game against the Saints, that he was already starting to take over against Cole Kmet. So I think against the Bengals defense, which is really the primary reason here that we're going against this Bengals defense, that they have allowed so many fantasy points to opposing tight ends. They are 32nd in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the tight end position. Obviously, we could talk about them giving up however many amount of points they gave up to the Steelers a couple weeks ago to all 3 tight ends. Then they just gave up 5 for 34 and 1 to Mason Taylor, 5 for 92 and 1 to Sam Laporta, 5 for 49 and 1 to TJ Hawkinson, 7 for 63 against Harold Fannin. It seems like DJ Turner seems to be like a really good corner for the Bengals. So if they're able to not shut down, but, hold Rome Odunze in check a little bit and forcing Caleb Williams to have to throw over the middle more to the tight end position, I think this could be a perfect storm, so to speak, where Loveland is seeing more snaps and more opportunities, and now he gets a really good opportunity against a good matchup to produce and potentially score his first touchdown of his career.
Yeah, and this is, kind of a bold call because he has yet to clear 7 fantasy points in PPR formats. So you are trying to project the breakout game for him. I agree that it lines up well. I do worry, just given his production, if Kmet is back, do they kind of scale back his snaps a little bit, and then that takes the ceiling off of this, but the matchup really could not be any better. 6.8 catches for 74 yards, 1.25 touchdowns per game. The Bengals are allowing that to that position, the tight end position. It really does line up to be a good breakout performance for him.
Moving on then to the running back position. I really like your call. Honestly, I think both of our calls are pretty much the top two waiver wire pickups on the week, not to spoil anything. But I really, really like your running back that you've picked. So why don't you give us the rundown on your running back sneaky start?
I almost went with your guy as well, by the way. I just decided to go obvious for my running back, and that's Tyrone Tracy. Cam Scatterbo out for the year with a really nasty leg injury. Tracy is going to ascend back to the RB1 role that he had last year from week 5 on. Last year, he averaged 16.4 touches for 81 total yards, 0.46 touchdowns per game. He was the RB16 in that span. He was the RB21 on a per game basis. And the matchup on top of it is favorable. The 49ers have allowed 125 total yards, 0.88 touchdowns per game to opposing backfields. They've given up 5 85-plus total yard outings in the last 5 weeks. So I like Tracy to have a good game.
Yeah, with the receiving ability for Tyrone Tracy, I mean, that just adds a nice little extra floor and ceiling opportunity, especially if San Francisco, they looked terrible against Houston last week. But if they're able to kind of get back to where they were prior to that as an above 500 team that they are record-wise, that they could challenge the Giants to have to throw a little bit more. And with the lack of weapons that they have there now for Jackson Dart, it could be a nice Tyrone Tracy game. So I am at the running back position then going with Kareem Hunt with this Isaiah Pacheco news that he might miss this week. That if that were to be the case, Kareem Hunt then would be the main RB1 with Brashard Smith then coming in as a change of pace back and as a receiving back. Kareem Hunt, though, also can catch a few passes, even though he's only caught one pass a game essentially the whole entire season. He's averaging one reception per game, actually, 8 receptions, 8 games. But he can have receiving abilities if they were to use him in that situation. But he is much more of the 2-down back and the goal line back specifically. He hasn't been insane on his limited volume, but he definitely has the touchdown upside. And when you look at the Buffalo Bills, they are 27th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the running back position. And when you look at the game log in terms of running backs that have produced against them versus running backs that have not, a lot of the times whenever opposing offenses are able to keep up with Buffalo's scoring, that's when you see the really big games for the running back position. And, whenever you see, like, Breece Hall didn't do well against them, but Buffalo won by 20 points. Chuba found a touchdown last week, but even he and Rico, because they split, they didn't do all that much individually. Also because the Bills won by 31 points. But when opposing offenses are able to keep up with Buffalo, like Kansas City should be able to, that's where we can get some really, really big games. Not to say Kareem Hunt's going to have like 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, but 60, 70, maybe 80 yards total and a touchdown or 2 could be phenomenal for you, especially if you really need it due to running back injuries or more buys this week off the waiver wires for Kareem Hunt.
I like the call. I almost picked him myself. I was actually going to discuss Brashard Smith as well. Last time we saw him in a sizable role, he had 19 touches for 81 yards in week 7. We thought maybe that he was taking over that RB2 role, but it was really more of an injury to Kareem Hunt. And then Kareem Hunt got healthy and came back and obviously had 2 touchdowns last week in a very low yardage game. But if Smith's on the field a lot or a third of the game against Buffalo, then he is a viable start, RB3 flex start as well, especially in PPR formats, since he does catch passes. The Bills have surrendered 149 total yards, 1.5 touchdowns per game to opposing backfields since week 4, while giving up 5.1 yards per carry in that span. So it's just a great matchup against the Bills.
Final position then at the wide receiver spot. I really like your wide receiver sneaky start. He's getting thrown into one of my redraft lineups this week. So why don't you explain your week 9 wide receiver sneaky start?
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, but I'm finally confident in recommending Travis Hunter, that people take him off the bench and put him into their starting lineups if they need a wide receiver too this week. He's he's got a nice matchup. Vegas is 25th in adjusted fantasy points allowed to the position. He's coming off of his bye, which is often when we see rookie players grow, their role grow if they've had kind of a quiet start to their career. Although the week before the bye, he had 8 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown on 14 targets while playing a season high 87% of the offensive snaps against the Rams. Vegas has given up 13.8 receptions for 146 yards, 1.525 touchdowns per game to opposing receivers since week 4. Matt Harmon was commenting about Hunter coming out of the bye, quote, a good shot that Hunter is the primary focus, end quote, of Jacksonville's passing attack after he's had a week off to digest and get more ingrained in the playbook. On top of all this, Brian Thomas Jr. is a little dinged up. I think he's probably going to play through a shoulder injury, but he's not 100%. It doesn't appear. So this could be the Hunter week that we're all looking for.
Yeah, I was actually just looking up to see if there's any updated news on the BTJ injury because it was helpful for him that he had that injury, then he went right into a bye week. So people might have missed that he left with that shoulder injury. But I think it's the same shoulder he's been dealing with injuries. I don't remember if he dealt with it last year, but I think he dealt with it at LSU because I saw Jeff Mueller was talking about it being the same shoulder, and if that's going to be an issue for the second half, then that could be another thing that really helps with Travis Hunter's kind of second half rookie surge that we often see so much. But, if BTJ isn't 100%, then that's another feather in Travis Hunter's cap for sure. And I like the matchup and the play this week in the first week off the bye. My sneaky start then for wide receiver is going to be Darius Slayton, the wide receiver for the New York Giants, who in his first game back, I believe played. I actually didn't write down what the number was. Do you have the number off the top of your head? 70%, 80%?
73% of the snaps.
73% of snaps, 5 targets, 2 for 26, and then had a called back 80-yard touchdown, which I was sitting right next to my Eagles' best friend, and obviously he was like, "Oh, that's offensive pass interference." I still don't know if that was offensive pass interference.
That was BS.
I don't really think it was. So you could have had a much better day had that touchdown actually stood and had 16, 17 PPR points right there from Darius Slayton. He does draw a kind of rough matchup against the San Francisco 49ers. They are not phenomenal, a phenomenal matchup in defensive target with opposing wide receivers, but they have been pretty susceptible in certain instances. They're the defense that gave up 4 for 64 and a touchdown to Cameron Johnson and Tez Johnson to the Buccaneers a couple weeks ago. Then this past week, without Nico Collins, all of the other wide receivers for Houston were very viable. Xavier Hutchinson, 5 for 69 and 1. Jaden Higgins, 4 for 34 and 1. And then Jalen Noel had 5 for 63. So they've been beaten before by some kind of rando names, but then also on some rather big plays. And that is Darius Slayton's game. So as coming back into kind of being the wide receiver 1 role for Jackson Dart, I could see Darius Slayton being a pretty decent start. Not to say that you have to start him, but if you don't have any better options, I think Darius Slayton could be a very high upside swing if you need to catch up on your matchup.
Yeah, I wrote him up for sneaky starts, and I actually looked it up. It was a 68-yard touchdown due to a weak OPI call. His line would have been 3 for 94 and a touchdown, and we'd be looking at him very differently right now coming off the waiver wire. I'm not bitter at all. I started him in one league and needed him, and I got the win, but I thought I had a nice 68-yard touchdown catch there from him. Looked pretty smart. But the 49ers since week 4 have given up an average of 181 yards to the receiver position. So there is room for both him and Wando Robinson to produce here this week.
So that's going to wrap things up for the week 9 sneaky starts. 2 players at every single position: Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, AJ Barner, Colston Loveland, Tyrone Tracy, Kareem Hunt, Travis Hunter, and Darius Slayton. So we're going to move on to the Bleacher Nation Fantasy card segment of this show. If you're unfamiliar, the Bleacher Nation Fantasy app is a pick'em style game, very similar to Prize Picks or Underdog, where you go through every single player's props, yardage, receptions, total yards, all that kind of stuff. longest play, and you hit more or less on the prop, build out your card, submit your entry, and you win a certain multiplier depending on how many legs you've thrown into your card. So this week, I believe the promotion is still going on right now. If you were to get in today, it is a 100% deposit match up to $500 with code DUNK. I don't know if that promotion is still going to be live in the beginning of November, but if you're listening to this on Friday, on October 31st, then you could still potentially get in on that. Otherwise, the regular deposit match is 50% deposit match up to $100, which is still a very good promo match, but we have a very aggressive one right now with that code DUNK for 100% up to $500. They're also running a promotion leg this Sunday for the Sunday night game. It is Jackson Smith and Jigba, more than half a receiving yard. That is for new users only, which they defined as anybody who has not yet played a card. So if you do have an account, but you haven't played yet, you can you qualify for the JSN promo leg. And if you have not even signed up, you can sign up and play the promo leg as one of your legs for this week's card, including the ones that John and I are about to give you. So John, why don't you hit us with leg number 2, if you're throwing in that promo leg number 2 for this Sunday.
I was going to go, and I actually had Chase Brown in here because it's 67.5 rush receiving yards. But then I was talking about Tyrone Tracy and, the five straight in the last 5 weeks with running back getting at least 85 total rushing and receiving yards. So why not go with Tyrone Tracy? His number is 75.5. He's got a little cushion there. You can get to 85.5. You're safe ground. Tyrone Tracy, more than 75.5 rush receiving yards against the 49ers.
And then my leg, I think I've done this one before and it hit, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, more than 76.5 receiving yards. They are playing at home against the Minnesota Vikings this weekend. And Minnesota, while a very good pass defense, they have been one that if you can target them with more slot wide receivers, that has been a little bit more beneficial. Devonta Smith had 9 for 183 and 1 against them. And then Ladd McConkey, 6 for 88 and 1. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I mean, I don't need to explain to you how great Amon-Ra St. Brown is. He's one of the engines of the Detroit Lions offense. And if they were to, need to score points to win the game this week, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be the main guy to do that. So he's been in the 70s or above that mark in the majority of his games. So 77 receiving yards is what we need from Amon-Ra St. Brown as the wide receiver 1 for the Detroit Lions.
So I have a couple of notes. I checked with the higher ups, and the 100% match offer will end next week, probably, is the quote. So you probably have some time to get in, but get in quickly.
Awesome.
I like the probably that they threw in there at the end. The other number that I thought was pretty low was Jared Goff's passing number. It's right. I just checked. It's 239.5. Goff at home in the last 2 seasons has averaged 274 yards passing and 2.4 touchdowns per game. I wrote him up for sneaky starts as well. There's a good chance that he goes over that number as well, I think, against Minnesota.
I was looking at Jonathan Taylor's number. It's every single week JT is going to be in like the 90s or even up to like 100. And every single week I'm like, man, I bet you he hits that, but that's really high. And he's probably going to hit that this week against the Steelers. So
that's like Derrick Henry last year. I was just kept like 7 straight weeks. I was taking the over, and he just kept hitting the over.
Yep. So that's Saquon was the same way last year too. So JT's kind of turned into that animal this year and has been absolutely phenomenal. So if you wanted to add another one in there, I liked. I think Jonathan Taylor's going to absolutely destroy my Pittsburgh Steelers. But the official card that we have is the JSN promo leg. For new users only. Tyrone Tracy, more than 75.5 rush and receiving yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, more than 76.5 receiving yards. That is a 6x payout on those 3 plays. And that is going to wrap things up for today's episode. We appreciate you guys so much for joining, listening, watching, depending on the platform that you are on right now on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. We'd appreciate if you would hit that subscribe or follow button, like this video or podcast as well, so we can help to spread it to more people. And we will catch you guys next week for week 10 sneaky starts on the Most Accurate Podcast. See ya.